Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jana Ballabha Girivarathari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivarathari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivarathari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivarathari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivarathari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivarathari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Hari Vrajaka Astor Tarasata Shri Shima His Divine Grace of High Charana Arvinda Bhaktivinoda Saraswati Prabhupada Ki ISKCON BBD Founder Charya Save the whole world Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Hari Vrajaka Astor Tarasata Shri Shima His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Nama Charger Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Premsaka Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Sadguru Bhakti Shri Shri Radha Krishna Govardhana Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Braj Bhumi Shri Vrindavan Ki Navdik Mayapur Dham Ki Purushkam Chatra Jagannath Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Maharani Ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrindi Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to somebodies. All glories to somebodies. All glories to somebodies. All glories, all glories. Lord, feet of Sri Guru and Sri Garanga. All glories to Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Which one's on the board? Is it 13? Okay. Pratame Sadbhuja Tanre Dekairi Ishvara. Shankha Chakre Gara Padma Sangha Venudhara. Pratame Sadbhuja Tanre Dekaila Ishvara. Shankha Chakra Gara Padma Sangha Venudhara. Pratame Sadbhuja Tanre Dekaili Ishvara. Shankha Chakra Gara Padma Sangha Venudhara. Shankha Chakra Gara Padma Sangha Venudhara. Pratame, that first. Satpuj, six-armed. Tanre, unto him. Dekaila, showed. Ishvara, the Lord. Shankha, conch shell. Chakra, disc. Gada, club. Padma, lotus flower. Shanga, bow. Venu, flute. Dhara, carrying. Translation: one day Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited to Lord Nityananda Prabhu a six-armed form bearing a conch shell, disc, club, lotus flower, bow and flute, responsively, one day Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited to Lord Nityananda Prabhu a six-armed form bearing a conch shell, disc, club, lotus flower, bow and flute. Tabi chata buja haile tina anga vakra dui hasti venu bajaya duye shanka chakra. Thereafter the Lord showed him his forearm form, standing in a three-curved posture. With two hands he played upon a flute, and the other two he carried a conch shell and a disc. Tabita dvidbuja kevala vangsi vadana shama anga pita vastra vajendra nandana. Finally the Lord showed Nityananda Prabhu his two-armed form of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, simply playing on his flute, his bluish body dressed in yellow garments. And purport Chaitanya Mangal vividly elaborates on this description. So before I read the next verse, I'll just discuss a little bit about this Sadbhuj form. It's really interesting that this form that Lord Chaitanya manifested before Nityananda Prabhu, he only actually manifested 3 times. He manifested the six-armed form to Nityananda. This was just after Nityananda Prabhu had met Lord Chaitanya, because what had happened was Nityananda, he was traveling with a sannyasi. I can't remember the name of the sannyasi. I don't know actually if it's mentioned. But this sannyasi had requested in charity from Harai Pandit, who is Nityananda's father, that he give Nityananda his son to serve as a brahmachari assistant. So he did that. And Nityananda traveled with this sannyasi for many years, and then they spent some time living in Braja. And when he was living in Braja, Nityananda Prabhu heard about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. So then after some years he left Braja and he went to meet Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip or Mayapur. And when he got there, he was staying in the house of Nandanacharya. And Lord Chaitanya came to know that he was staying there, and he made some arrangement to meet with Nityananda. And then this section here, this chapter here, this is describing basically the Lord's youthful to adult pastimes, basically from the point of 16 years old to the point he took sannyas. And so then when Nityananda and Chaitanya met, then a few things happened, but then at one point he revealed this six-armed form. The only 2 other times that he revealed this form was firstly to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, just after he met him, and then later to Prataparudra Maharaj. So he only showed it 3 times. In the other 2 times he showed this six-armed form, the form was somewhat different. 2 hands were holding a bow, an arrow, representing Ramachandra. 2 hands were holding a flute, representing, no prizes for guessing this one. And in 2 hands he was holding a danda and a kamadalu, which is representing Lord Chaitanya. However, we see here that Krishnadas Kaviraj is describing how he was holding conch, disc, club, lotus flower. So who's this representing? Yeah, Vishnu is representing the form, one of the forms of Vishnu. And I'm not sure, it's not clear which order those things are in, because usually from the order as described in the Bhagavatam, if you look at the order which he holds the items, you can understand which form of Vishnu it is. And of course, the bow in one hand representing Ramachandra, and the flute in another hand representing Krishna. So again, showing his supreme nature. And one of the things that, because it's interesting, in the 5th canto, Prabhupada also mentions this. This is the 5th canto, chapter 19. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is therefore represented in the 6-armed form of Sadbhuj Murti, which is a combination of Lord Ramachandra, Lord Krishna, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. the best purpose of human life can be fulfilled by worshipping the Sadbhuj Murti, the form of the Lord with 6 arms, and so 2 arms of Ramachandra Krishna Chaitanya. But this form here, it's different, and I've tried to find out why the difference there, but I couldn't come across any information, and you know, Prabhupada doesn't comment on it here, because we see it's interesting. Like to give a class on I find giving class on Chaitanya Charitamrita quite challenging, because Prabhupada would explain the Chaitanya Charitamrita is the postgraduate study of the science of Krishna consciousness. Me, I'm still in the beginning study. I'm still trying to understand Bhagavad Gita. So to discuss the Chaitanya Charitamrita is, you know, quite daunting, because there's so much, not just symbolism, but everything in the Chaitanya Charitamrita has some deep meaning. And sometimes it's explained by the acharyas, sometimes it's not. And there's actually many verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which don't have purports, so they're not explained. And you know, we don't really have a lot in the way of commentaries available on the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhaktivinoda Thakur did a commentary. Also, we understand that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did a commentary. And my understanding is that Prabhupada's commentary is mostly Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary. This is probably part of the reason he was able to translate it so quickly, that it was, he was just, you know, translating Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was also adding his own, but he's also translating Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So, and we see here also how it's revealing that this form that Nityananda saw was different. This is also stated, there's a book by Lochan Das Thakur, I think it is, called Chaitanya Chandradoy. It also explains it in the same way. So it's not just like it's not a mistake or something, it's explained the same in another book. And then we see there's a book called Chaitanya Mangal, which was written by, was it Lochan Das Thakur? Yeah, I think it was written by, because there was actually 2 books called Chaitanya Mangal, and I think one became the Chaitanya Bhagavat, and one stayed, you know, Chaitanya Mangal Lochan Das Thakur. And in there's a series of prayers that Lord Chaitanya is offering to his danda, and in this book he's revealing that his danda is the same as his flute and the same as his bow and arrow. He sees them the same. And the acharyas comment that this is actually showing how, is presenting this philosophy of Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, how all these forms of Krishna are simultaneously one but different. And we see that, you know, if you look at the, you know, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radhe Krishna Nahayanya. Or Narottam Das Thakur, he's revealed, what's that song? Yeah, Brajendra Nandana say, Sachi Sutta Hole say, Balaram Hoilo Nitai. That the son of Brajendra Nandana, you know, Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan, he's come as Sachi Sutta, the son of Mother Sachi, and Balaram, he's come as Nitai. And we see that you know, ultimately, and this is described quite clearly in the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto, how all these incarnations or all these expansions or forms of Godhead ultimately are just expansions of Krishna. It says, Ete changsar karapungsam Krishnas tu bhagavan swayam indrari vyakalam lokam mridiyanti yuge yuge. That these forms, ultimately, they're all coming from Krishna. So in that sense, they're non-different, because they're just expansions of Krishna. They're either plenary expansions, meaning they're full manifestations of his energies, or they're partial manifestations. We see with the, we have the various, I've been studying a little bit, in my reading of the Chaitanya Charitamrita right now, I'm reading the 5th chapter of the Adi Leela. And it begins, the 5th chapter begins by describing the different, how Krishna expands as Balaram, and from Balaram expands, you know, Shankashand and the Chatavyuha, then Mahashankashand and the 2nd Chatavyuha, then all the Purusha avatars. And it's explaining how, you these forms, mostly they're plenary forms, but then we get to the Purusha avatars. These are partial incarnations of Lord Energy. And we'll see that even we look at the different forms of Krishna as described in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Laghu Bhagavatamrita has two parts. The first part is focusing on Krishna's expansions in different forms, and the second part focuses on Krishna's relationship with his devotees. So in the first part, especially in chapter 5, it mentions how Krishna has three primary forms, and these are called Paravasta. And so Krishna, Ram, and Nrsimha, these are all primary forms of they have all the six opulences of what's that? Aishwarya Samagrasya Virya Yashasya Gyanavadagashaya Sanam Bhagavatin. That there's full strength, full fame, full knowledge, full renunciation, full wisdom. All these things are there in these forms. But it's interesting, even though they have full in all these things, they're manifested to different degrees. We see with Nrsimha, he's very much an Aishwarya form. Very, very, and he's worshipped in great Aishwarya. And then you see that, and very, very, very heavy form of the Lord, very powerful form. Then if you look at Ramachandra, he's a little bit more sweet. He has a loving relationship with his wife and things like that. But if you look at Nrsimha, Lakshmi, when he manifested his Ugra form, Lakshmi was afraid to approach him because the relationship is more Aishwarya. Whereas with Ramachandra, the relationship was sweeter. And then we see with Krishna, his relationship is the most sweet. He has such sweet, loving exchanges with all his devotees and his intimate associates in Vrindavan, with his parents, with his friends, with his girlfriends. This is very, very, the exchanges in Vrindavan it's called Madhurya Leela, very, very sweet pastimes. So, yeah. Anyhow, so the idea is that Lochan Das Thakur is describing how the danda, the bow, arrow, flute, these are all identical, and this is revealing this the Acharya's comment that this Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur particularly comments that this is revealing the Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva nature of all these different forms, because they're nothing but Krishna. Just like there's what's that verse in the Advaita Machuta Manadi Minantarupa Adyang Purana Purusham Navayo, that all these things they're nothing but Krishna. They're just expanding from Krishna, but they're different from him as well. They're nothing but him expanded in a different form to carry out different activities, to carry out different pastimes, and it's trying to understand the nature of Krishna. It's quite difficult in some ways, but in other ways it's quite simple. But we see that there are so many different forms of Godhead, but it's not like they're different personalities. They're the same personality manifested in different ways. And for us that's a little bit difficult to understand because we can't do that. We just have this one form, and the idea of having another form just doesn't really kind of fit into our small brain. But we see, but even we see in in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes particularly, there are many persons there who are manifested in different forms. Like Arjuna, for instance, he's manifested in several different forms in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. And even we see some personalities in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes have different personalities residing in that one form. Which, for me with my little brain, it's really hard to understand that, because I can't do that. I don't experience that. Therefore, because I'm dealing very much with the external nature, because I'm perceiving the creation, perceiving everything through my external senses, and trying to understand it through my external intelligence, it's difficult to understand that something completely transcendental. And in the same way, with the form of the Lord, he manifests himself in so many different forms for the purpose of pastimes, for the purpose of particular activities. Just like I was saying before, how he expands, his immediate expansion is Balaram. And it's described the only difference between Balaram and Krishna is the color of the dhoti and the color of the skin. Everything else is the same. We see that Krishna is blackish, Balaram is bluish. And he's got a sort of bluish tint to his whitish body. And Lord Krishna, he always wears a golden colored dhoti. Balaram, he always wears a bluish colored dhoti. That's the only difference. Apart from that, they're the same, the exact same capacity. But it's really interesting, even though he's the same, still Krishna is original. Ishvara Paramakrishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarvakaranakara. He's the cause of all causes, the origin of all origins. Ekara Ishvara Krishna Arasabibrita. It describes in the 5th chapter of the Adi Leela that Ekara Ishvara Krishna, there is only one Ishvara, that's Krishna. Arasabibrita. All others dance as he makes them do so. So every single personality, whether it's a Vishnu Tattva, Shakti Tattva, or a Jiva Tattva, every single personality is dancing according to the will of Krishna because he is the original. And we can see an interesting manifestation of this in the Brahma Vimohan Lila, when Lord Brahma stole the calves and the cowherd boys. What happened, as we know, is Brahma, he didn't believe that Krishna, this little cowherd boy, was God. He just found that hard to, again, trying to perceive the transcendental through the mundane mind. You cannot do it. It's not possible. You just become bewildered, because it's just like, we go and visit Vrindavan, right? And we see, what is it, 84 kroshas or something. It's got a certain, according to our mundane ideas, it's got a dimension to it, a specific dimension. Yet Krishna had Nanda Maharaj had 900,000 cows. How do you fit 900,000 cows into that little bit of land? You can't with mundane perception. It's described how the various acharyas describe the nature of Vrindavan is it's like a lotus flower. And sometimes the lotus flower expands, and sometimes the lotus flower contracts. So because sometimes you hear that Krishna, he would go from one place to another in Vrindavan in a matter of moments. Yet to our mundane perception, these places are many miles apart. So when Krishna wanted to move quickly from one place to another, the lotus would contract. And when he wanted to have 900,000 cows or whatever it was he was doing, or accommodate all his millions of friends, then the Dharma would expand. So with mundane vision, with mundane perception, very difficult to understand. And in the same way with the Lord's expansions, very, very difficult to understand how he does these things. So, I forgot where it was. You were talking about the 6 hours. So yeah, there's this point of the Achinta Beta Beta Tattva, the simultaneously inconceivable oneness and difference. It's inconceivable. You cannot understand it with the mundane mind. And even it's described, because in the material world, most things we perceive as static. Well, they're not really static, but they appear to be static. They're actually, everything is decaying. Everything in this material world decays. Yet we see, and it's fairly easy to, if you take this stand, you can analyze it, you know what it's made of, you know what temperature it burns at, what temperature it does it, all these different types of stuff. You can cut it, you can shape it, you can do so many things with it. So there's a degree of understanding. But when it comes to the transcendental, it's very difficult. This is achintya, means inconceivable. Very difficult to conceive. And we see that even with the transcendental personalities, their nature is continually expanding, particularly Krishna. His nature is continually expanding, and even he cannot understand his nature. Even he cannot understand his full glories. And he's expanded as Anantashesh. And it's described how Anantashesh with his, sometimes it's described as having 100 hoods, sometimes described as having 1,000 hoods, sometimes described as having unlimited hoods. And so with his unlimited hoods, he's describing Krishna's wonderful pastimes, and he never comes to the end of it because Krishna's pastimes are constantly expanding. And I was discussing, because one thing came, when I was in Mayapur, one thing came up in the reading in the Bhagavatam about that there's this story of how Lord Brahma, Krishna called all the Lord Brahma went to see Lord Vishnu, and then he knocks on the door, and he says to the doorkeepers, "Can you tell Krishna that Lord Brahma is here?" So the doorkeeper goes off to see Lord Krishna. He comes back. Lord Krishna says, "Ask which Brahma." And so he comes back and he asks Lord Brahma, "Which Brahma are you?" And Lord Brahma is like, "What do you mean, which Brahma am I? I'm Lord Brahma." And then he said, because he didn't realize it was unlimited. And then he said, "Inform the Lord that it's the four-headed Brahma." So he went back and told him the Lord said, "Come in." So in the meantime, Krishna called all the Lord Brahmas from the universe. Right? And it's described in this section of the Bhagavatam. I can't remember, it wasn't the 10th canto, it was somewhere else. Because I was looking this up, because it's also this pastime is also discussed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But the way it discusses the pastime, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it gives it a bit more dimension, so you can understand a little bit more about what's happening there. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it describes that not only did he call all the Lord Brahmas, he called all the Lord Shivas as well. So the Lord Shivas in all the universe, they came there as well. And it mentions, it says, there's a word there in the verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, Amar Brahmanda. Amar means mind, Brahmanda means universe. So all these Brahmas were thinking, it's so wonderful that Krishna is manifested here in my universe. Yeah? So even though they're coming to this, the universe, that the four-headed Brahmas, he's in the four-headed Brahmas in his universe, and he's going to visit Lord Krishna in Dwarka. All these, some Brahmas have got 4 heads, 10 heads, 100 heads, 1,000 heads, 1,000,000 heads, 1 billion heads. There's so many Brahmas, and I was because I was reflecting on this pastime. It's quite extraordinary because, Krishna's pastimes. It's like he's just going from one universe to the next, the next, the next. So in one universe he's manifesting his birth activities, and the next universe, and that birth activity that just goes from one universe to the next, the next, the next, the next. So this is constantly going on. Somewhere Krishna's being born. Somewhere Krishna's, like breaking butter pots. Somewhere he's teasing the gopis. All these pastimes are constantly happening. Yet still, if you look at the nature of how these pastimes are happening, and they're just constantly going on, it seems from this that when Krishna called all these Brahmas and all these Rudra or Shivas there, that some of these were personalities from the past, some of these were personalities from the future. It's not like it was all happening at that particular time. So I was discussing this with Banu Maharaj, and he was explaining to me how Krishna's pastimes are beyond time and space and place, because they're all thinking that they all came together in one place. To them it was their universe, and they're all thinking that, oh, it's so kind of Krishna to manifest in my universe. Yet they're all seeing, none of them were seeing all the other Brahmas. Only our Brahma, the four-headed Brahma, was seeing all the other Brahmas. Yeah? And he was quite astounded by this. Yeah? And so this is the nature of Krishna's pastimes. If we try to understand these things with our mundane consciousness, we'll just become bewildered. We'll start to think that Krishna is an ordinary human being. He's just an ordinary person like you and me. And this is the problem, is like when we read about Krishna's various pastimes, especially things like his Rasa Leela, we start to think he's just an ordinary lusty boy. Therefore, this is why it's really important to understand these things through the eyes of the spiritual master, through the eyes of the realized soul, because otherwise we can never actually conceive of these things. Anyhow, there's a lot more that I could say about the Sadbhuj form, because it's quite remarkable. I'll just read this last verse. Tabe Nityananda Gosha Nira Vyasa Pujana Nityananda Vesha Kaila Mushala Dharana Nityananda Prabhu then arranged to offer Vyasa Puja, or worship of the spiritual master, to Lord Gaurasundra. But Lord Chaitanya carried the plough-like weapon called Mushala in the ecstasy of being Nityananda Prabhu. Mushala actually means a bludgeon, it's not a plough. Yeah? But so, I'm not really sure. I mean, I checked all the different translations and I could find, and generally it refers to being as a, it's like a bludgeon. Sometimes you see, Nityananda, Balaram used to have, I don't know if he still has it, it's a silver, long sort of, sort of like a softball bat. It looks a little bit like a softball bat, short softball bat. That's a mushala. But here, Prabhupada's translating mushala as being a plough-like weapon. And I guess part of the reason he's doing that is this, that the idea here is, and he'd probably be getting this translation from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is showing how Lord Chaitanya is manifesting himself as Balaram, to show that actually Nityananda is also expanded from Lord Chaitanya. Purport: by the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu arranged for Vyasa Puja of the Lord on the night of the full moon. He arranged for Vyasa Puja, or Guru Puja, through the agency of Vyasadeva. So this is indicating how Vyasa is the original spiritual master, and whenever we worship the Guru, especially when we have Vyasa Puja, the understanding is that the Guru is representing the Parampara. So we're worshipping him as a representative of the Guru Parampara. We're not worshipping him. It's kind of we are, but we aren't. Obviously we're worshipping him because the Guru is dedicating his life to preaching the mission of the Lord. And Prabhupada explains this in a letter, how the Guru, he's worshipped of Vyasa Puja because he's dedicated his life to canvassing on Krishna's behalf. But also we're worshipping the principle of the Parampara, because when we take shelter of a spiritual master, we become connected to the Guru Parampara. And through the Guru Parampara, we're able to access the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's only because the Guru worships his Guru, who worships his Guru, or serves his Guru, who serves his Guru, who serves his Guru, that it works. If the Guru, for instance, was just to take himself as being, I'm the only one you need to take shelter, or you just do it all through me, it's not going to work. You have to understand the connection of the Guru Parampara. We have to understand that it's just like Prabhupada would often use the analogy of the power, the electricity in the light. So it's not just like the electricity is contained in that light. The electricity comes through the wires, through the switch, and then ultimately goes down through the transmission lines to the powerhouse. Because the electricity is coming through this parampara, if you like, of the whole system, and some parts are more powerful, some parts are less powerful. That's how we get the light here. So it works in the same way that when we take shelter of a, Prabhupada would often use the term a bona fide spiritual master, it means, and he's bona fide, why? Because he follows the Guru Parampara. Prabhupada would say that he's not inventing anything, he's simply repeating what's already been stated. So this is the potency of the Guru, because he has the potency of the Parampara, because he's just repeating. And this is why, this is one of the reasons why it's described as being Vyasa Puja, or the worship of the original Vyasa. Since Vyasadeva is the original Guru, spiritual master of all who follow the Vedic principles, worship of the spiritual master is called Vyasa Puja. Nityananda Prabhu arranged for the Vyasa Puja, and Sankirtan was going on. But when he tried to put a garland on the shoulder of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he saw himself in Lord Chaitanya. There is no difference between the spiritual positions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, or Krishna and Balaram. All of them are but different manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. During this special ceremony, all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand there is no difference between Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it begins with 14 verses. In these 14 verses, there's a Mangalarachan where he's glorifying the principal deities in Vrindavan. Then 6 verses describe Lord Chaitanya. 5 verses describe Nityananda. There's a verse that describes Advaita, and then there's a verse that describes Shrivas, and then one verse describes the Panchatattva. So the 5 verses on Lord Nityananda are described in the 5th chapter of the Adi Leela. And just wanted a few notes here. And there's a few verses, a couple little extracts out of some of the verses in the beginning. Because in the beginning of the chapter, the 5th chapter, it describes how Nityananda is non-different from Lord Chaitanya. Actually, he expands from Lord Chaitanya. So verse 4, Krishna is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Lord Balaram is his second body. So it's describing how he's no different. He just has a second body, and it's Balaram. The two are one and the same identity. They differ only in form. Lord Balaram is the first bodily expansion of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. So we see that Krishna is often referred to as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then Balaram is referred to as the Supreme Personality of Servant of Godhead. So what happens is whenever Krishna manifests himself, you'll always see that Balaram will also manifest in some way to serve him. You know, in the form of Vishnu, he's there as an Anantashesh. He serves as Sheshashayi, the couch. He lies on the couch. He expands himself as the umbrella, as the Brahman thread, as the shoes, you know, the sitting place, the lying place. He manifests in so many different ways. When Ramachandra came, he came as Lakshman. Yeah. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, he comes as Nityananda. So he's always there to serve the Lord in so many different ways. Then verse 7, Shankashan, Sheshanag, and the Vishnus who lie on the Karana ocean, Garbha ocean, and ocean of milk are his plenary portions and portions of his plenary portions. So these, you know, Sankashan, Anantashesh, and all the different Vishnus, they expand ultimately from Lord Balaram. And it's kind of interesting because if you look at the way, you know, it's described how Krishna expands as Balaram, then Balaram expands as Sankashan, but also what happens is Krishna expands as Vasudeva. It's simultaneously going on. It's like he's expanding this way and expanding that way. So you have Vasudeva, Sankashan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. And then from Sankashan comes Mahashankashan. And then from that's the first Chatavyuha. And then from this Mahashankashan comes the second Chatavyuha, which is it does get a little bit complicated, but it's kind of interesting. Then Lord Balaram, he's the original Sankashan. He assumes 5 other forms to serve the Lord. So he assumes all these different, you know, he assumes the different Vishnu forms, the Purusha avatars, but he also, what is it, Karadakshaya Vishnu, Gavadakshaya Vishnu, Chiradakshaya Vishnu, and Sheshanag, etc., to serve the Lord. He himself helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and he does the work. So in his own form, he serves in the pastimes of Krishna, but then he expands in these other forms to assist in the work of creation. Because all the creation actually comes through from him. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation in the form of Lord Sesha. He serves the Lord in various ways. And it's really interesting. There's different descriptions in the scriptures about Sesha. So sometimes it describes Sesha as being a plenary form of the Lord. Sometimes it describes Sesha as being a Shaktivesh incarnation, a Shaktivesh avatar. So Shaktivesh generally indicates a jiva that's been empowered or given some. Avesh means like a covering, or like this is a vesh, yeah, means a cloth covering. So avesh means like a covering. So it means there's a shakti which has been, you know, put on the living entity to enable them to do different things. So, I mean, I asked a lot of devotees who I considered very learned about, well, why is it sometimes he's described as, you know, being a plenary form, and why is it sometimes he's described as being a Shaktivesh? And I got all sorts of different answers, but none of them ever really satisfy me. And then one time I asked Bhanu Swami about it. And Bhanu Swami is a really good person for these answers, because he won't think, well, I think it's like this, or I think he won't say that. He said, Jiva Goswami describes, which is great, you know, because then you know it's authorized, then you know that this is the truth. Yeah? And you'll see that the Acharyas, they always do that. Prabhupada, like he'll quote from this one, he'll quote from that one. And he won't say, I think. Yeah. So Maharaji said, Jiva Goswami describes that when he's Shesha serving the Lord, when he's his couch, when he's the umbrella, when he's the Brahman thread, when his slippers, all these different things, this is Balaram. This is the plenary portion of the Lord. When he's holding the universes on his head, this is a Shaktavesh. Yeah? So just imagine how much power the Lord's investing in that jiva so he can hold the universe. Universes aren't small things. Yeah? I mean, even to hold this seat on my head would be quite difficult, but to hold the whole universe. And it's not just one universe. There's countless billions of universes. And he's so powerful, he doesn't even feel them. And this is the potency that he's been given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and this is, ultimately, this is all expanding from Balaram, who is none other than Nityananda Prabhu. So anyhow, there's a lot of things that could be discussed here, because also we see how, first off, he manifests a 6-arm form, then he manifests a 4-arm form, which is holding, I think it mentions a club. He carried a conch shell and a disc. He's got playing on a flute with 2 hands, and then a conch shell and disc. So still the Vishnu form's there, but the Krishna form, and then finally he manifests the Krishna form. So it'd be interesting to see if any of our acharyas have written commentaries on these 3 verses to show why that particular progression from the 6th-arm form with the conch, the disc, the lotus flower, and the club, and the flute and the bow, then going down to the conch and the disc, I think. The conch and disc and the flute, then finally to the flute. There must be a reason for that, but I don't know what it is. Yeah, so really interesting stuff coming out here. Any questions at all? Yeah.
He was sort of expressing that he would like to be able to go to both Chaitanya Leela and Krishna Leela. And this might be a bit of a high question, I'm not sure, but in terms of the Siddha Swarup form, like how to understand this, or is it beyond that mundane ability?
Inconceivable. You can do it. I mean, it happens, but it's inconceivable because we see, like it's described that there's 2 books. There's the Radha Krishna Ganadesh Dipika and there's the Gaura Ganadesh Dipika. So in the Radha Krishna Ganadesh Dipika, it describes the activities of all these associates of Lord Krishna and Radha. In the Gaura Ganadesh Dipika, it describes who all those personalities are in Gaura Leela, who they are in Krishna Leela. Now, mostly they're jivas, but they're eternal associates. So it is quite possible, it seems, for us to be manifest in different leelas. Don't ask me to explain it beyond that, though. I have no idea how that happens, because I perceive everything through my mundane intelligence, my mundane senses. And you cannot understand the inconceivable with the conceivable. It's just you can't do it. So it's possible because the Shastras tell it it's possible. But how that works, I don't know. Yes, right. Maybe the microphone so that.
Lord Balaram is Ishvara, we say. He's good as the Supreme Lord.
Yeah.
But he's Britya. All expansions are servant.
All.
So how unfortunate it is that how unfortunate it is that such persons as jivas, we have conditioned souls like myself. How can they be not servants? The attitude of being master.
But that's illusory. They think they're not servants. Because, again, this is the mundane perception. Everything's based on this mundane perception. They're thinking, because the material concept is to be a servant is a low position, but the transcendental concept is to be the servant is the highest position, and this is why Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya, to experience the bliss of a servant. This is one of the reasons. There's 6 reasons given, but one of the reasons he came as Lord Chaitanya was to experience the bliss of service, because the servant experiences a higher bliss than the master in the transcendental concept. But the conditioned living entity is thinking that to take on the role of a servant, this is the lowest position in the material. And you look, it's like, in a mundane sense, you'll see someone who's having to serve others is a very downtrodden position. Because ultimately what are they serving is money. They're serving something to facilitate the material enjoyment. So this actually is a very downtrodden position. But in the spiritual concept, we're serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're serving the greatest person. Therefore, this is the greatest position. There is no greater position than to be able to serve Krishna. Therefore, only Krishna takes the position of the master. And this is to show many things. It's to show, one, that he is the supreme, he's the original, but also that even personalities like Balaram and Vishnu and Lord Chaitanya, they all take the position of servant to show how glorious the position of the servant is. Great kings like Kulashekar and Yudhisthira and all these personalities, they all saw themselves as servants of Krishna. Prithu Maharaj, who's a Shaktavaisya incarnation, saw himself as a servant of Krishna. So it's actually a glorious position to be in. But because of our material contamination, we don't want to take the position of a servant. We want to be the master. And as long as we have that concept of wanting to be the master, we have to stay here. But it's only when we get to the point of wanting to serve the Supreme Person of God that we can actually understand our real position. And it's really interesting, in toward the end of the 4th canto, describing Prithu Maharaj, and there's a section where he's offering prayers to Lord, I think it's chapter 19 or 20 in the 4th canto, where he's offering prayers to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu comes and he's offering prayers to him. And he's saying, because the Lord's offering benedictions and things like that, he said, I don't want any of this stuff. All I want to do is have the association of your devotees and to hear them speaking about your glories. This is all I want. Because this is the most glorious position. Because and Kunti, she's saying something very similar. She says, Vipata Santata Bhavado Dasham Yasha Apuna Bhavadasham. I would never pray like this. Just no way. She's saying, let the calamities come again and again. And you look at they tried. The Kauravas tried to kill them in so many different ways. They went through so much difficulty, but she's saying, let it come again and again. Why? Because when these calamities happen, I think of you. When I think of you, I no longer fear repeated birth and death. So this is the position of the devotees, because the devotees constantly absorbed in hearing and thinking and talking about the Lord. Then they're actually with the Lord always, so they have no fear for the material world. So the position of the devotee is the most glorious position. So the position of a servant is the most glorious position. And only by taking this service mentality can we overcome the material nature. If we're trying to lord it over material nature, we'll be dominated by the material nature completely. But if we come to the position of understanding Jivera Surapahoy Krishnera Nitidas Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Beda Bed Prakash. If we understand this position, then we can actually become freed. And Krishna says in the 7th chapter, he says, Deveshe Gunamai Mamai Dratya Mamai Vijay Prapajante Mayam Mitam Tarati. There's this divine energy of mind consisting of 3 modes of material nature. It's very difficult to overcome, but those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. And in the 10th canto, chapter 14, there's a really nice description given about this, where it says how, like this material world is like a vast ocean, and it's just like, if you were dropped in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, out where somewhere between Hawaii, Japan, and the USA, long way to anywhere. There's nothing. Would you think you'd swim somewhere? You couldn't. There's no way you'd swim. You know? And so that's what the material world's like. There's no way we can cross over it. But Krishna says, for one who takes shelter of my lotus feet, then this vast material ocean, it shrinks to like the water in the hoof print of a calf. And even a baby can cross over that without getting wet. You know, so this is the idea. If we take shelter of Krishna, then this material world becomes insignificant. Practical experience I had when I was a child. When I was at high school, I went to a rough high school, really rough high school. There was knife fights, there was all sorts of stuff. You know, I was in a housing commission area in Geelong. And there was one fellow there called Cornelius Ballard. And he was a tough guy. I mean, he was a nice guy, you know. But he happened to be my brother's best friend, you know. And so, like, you know, you'd see it happening all the time. Is like, you know, you had the school toughs, and they were always picking on the other guys and, you know, fighting and beating them up and stuff. And they used to have some pretty crude things they do when people first came to school and stuff like that. You know, these initiation rites, they call them. You know, I won't describe them. There's not the Bhagavatam class is not a place for that, or the Chaitanya Chamrita class. But then it never happened to me. Why? Because the school tough was my elder brother's best friend. So I was protected. So it was hands off, you know, because they knew that if they you know, harassed me, then they'd get in trouble from this guy. And so it's the same way for us in the material world. If we take shelter of Krishna fully, Maya's hands off. She won't touch you if you take shelter of Krishna fully. Yeah? And to the degree you don't take shelter of Krishna, to that degree Maya will harass you. Yeah? So the only solution is to take shelter of Krishna. Okay? Anything else?
Thanks for the class. In the Nrsimha pastimes, where would Balaram be there? How would he incarnate as in the
Nandishesha. He's always there. He's always there. Wherever Krishna manifests, he's always there. Krishna's never alone. Like one time, devotee painted a painting of Krishna and he was on his own. My Prabhupada said, this is not Krishna. Where's his friends? Where's the cowherd boys? Where's the cows? Krishna's never alone. Always someone there. You know, you see his devotees there. Prahlad Maharaj is offering prayers. Lakshmi's there. Always someone, you know. Yeah? Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Sakadi Adi Lalita Krishna Daditi Dudhaya Gori Mochakani Dukuta Sakadi Bhadi Lalita Krishna Dali Dalla Dudha Tumi Dadi Mochakani Ruchi Chini Sharapudi Laddu Rasa Boli Bhojana Karina Krishna Hoye Kutu Ruchi Chini Sharapudi Laddu Rasa Boli Bhojana Karina Krishna Hoye Kutu Bhajam Bhajabhakatava Shri Gaura Hari Sahi Goshta Bihari Shri Gaura Hari Sahi Goshta Bihari Nanda Jashamati Ananda Jashamakirti Tahari Vajavakat Radhikara Pakkayanna Vivika Banjana Radhikara Pakkayanna Vivida Banjana Paramayanande Krishna Karena Bhajan Paramayanande Krishna Karena Bhajan Shri Gaura Hari Sahi Goshta Bihari Shri Gaura Hari Sahi Goshta Bihari Nanda Jashamakirti Aha Nanda Jashamakirti Hari Vajavakatava Vajanante Priya Krishna Vajanante Priya Krishna Subhashita Bari